yeah, what I'm thinking as a way out here is using some idea of a communicative approach in teaching your students. Basically, the main idea is to decrease the teacher talking time in the lesson, in the language teaching lesson, and increase student talking time. That's the basic idea. That's the basis of all language lessons. So students have to speak most part of the time in the lesson. Otherwise, they do not learn the language. How to do this? That's the ultimate goal for the language classroom, to make students talk most of the time. And we, as teachers, we do as little presentation and as little talking as possible. So the idea, like, to reduce our teacher talking time to about 30% in the lesson and increase student talking time to about 70% in the lesson. Yeah, how to do it in just general school environment. As I see it, the first step towards it is introducing pair work. That's actually what I tried last week, and students never talked in English in the class. They always learned some grammar rules and they did some grammar exercises, but they never actually talked in class. I tried to introduce pair work, which you would freak out probably at the thought of 20 students in the classroom doing pair work, like talking at the same time to one another. But actually, I could say that it was pretty successful. So pair work in my language classroom of beginner to elementary students worked. It does work. So what I did in the classroom, I basically said that, guys, you never did pair work, but now we are going to actually speak in pairs in English. And probably they were not quite ready for that, but in a few minutes it actually started to work. So there is nothing impossible in introducing pair work in your classroom, and that's one of the ways how to make them talk and make you relax a little, because talking all the time in the lesson is just impossible. The teacher cannot be speaking all the time in the lesson, especially if it is a language learning lesson. We are not supposed to talk all the time. We are supposed to rest half of the time and make students talk the rest of the lesson time. So introducing pair work. As I told you, my students were beginner to elementary levels, and they are class 6 to class 8. Yeah, so pretty good age. They are teenagers already, but the level is pretty low, again speaking. So I had to remind them some basic question types, like, for example, can you, or do you have you got, do you, present simple questions. And after we have reviewed these basic question types and answer constructions, they were able to, I had some handouts with questions. It's just, the idea is to reduce the paperwork with the handouts to minimum. Yeah, I just had one for each desk for the two students, and they used these constructions for interviewing one another. Yeah, that was my first experience introducing pair work in general classroom in a state school. Yeah, so pair work is a great instrument to making them speak more in the lesson. The other thing is individual work. That's how I see, that's one of the ways how I see we can reduce the workload on the teacher. We have to reduce it and make it, put it more on the students rather than on a teacher in the classroom. So the second thing is individual work. But for the individual work, they have to be, for example, reading for detail, reading the text for detail individually. But for this, they have to already possess some skill in reading for detail. So probably if the students are not ready, like my students are not quite ready for individual reading for detail. So I am planning to introduce this individual type of work later on. And last week we just started reading, like practicing reading actually. So well, we started to do it out loud, reading for the entire group, because as like my personal view, I don't see how else you can make them train reading if they're not trained yet. So you first do it for, like, you do it all together for the entire classroom. So of course, reading in paragraphs or sentence by sentence, it's your choice. We did it in paragraphs. Basically, we do not translate, of course, but if they don't understand something, we discuss stuff like this. So I think that I plan that we will spend a few more lessons, probably like 3, 4, 5 lessons on reading out loud for the classroom, different students doing this and discussing the text. And after that, probably we'll try this individual type of work when they try to read and find out information on their own. And we will just check the results of reading. So pair work, individual work, and I also think that group work is great for language classrooms. Group work is great for ESL classrooms if it's a language school, for example. In a language school, students already know how to do group work, and there are like maximum 9 students in the group, so it's easier to organize. When you have 20 students, I think in the state school, in a general classroom, it's quite difficult to organize group work just because of the discipline questions. They are not always very disciplined and ready to work in groups. So in my opinion, it's quite a sophisticated instrument, sophisticated technique, group work. But also after a while, I am in my classrooms, for example, planning to introduce group work too. That's probably going to be some like project work, probably dividing the class in 2 groups, because I have 2 rows of desks, so they can actually be grouped in 2 groups quite comfortably, or probably in 3 groups. And it's more, it's just more active, and I hope it can work, because so it implies some more activity than normal. And so they have to actually stand up, regroup, and sit like not in the way they are usually seated in the classroom. But I believe that's actually a very good tool for teaching them group work, which is very useful for their future life. And group work actually is one of the most necessary skills for the future life, and in schools it's not usually trained at all. And I guess language classroom is one of the best places to introduce group work, but for that we have to have a special kind of understanding between the teacher and the students. Students now are very progressive, they're very advanced kids, because they are all about internet and everything, so they are in many ways more progressive already than teachers. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that as I see it, a modern school teacher should have this like more personal way of understanding with the students, because they already understand. You say that, guys, we are doing this for in order for you to be able to say that, and they are supposed to understand. They are supposed to not to start speaking like between them in their native language. Like, why the teacher is talking to us like that? They are supposed to they're supposed to understand that we are doing a task, and they are to follow the instructions. in the task, like in the workplace. It's the same type of work as in my view. Modern students, they are quite progressive, as I said, but the problem is their school system is quite rigid at the moment, and it's quite like Russian school system is very conservative still. And teachers do not speak with students in this understanding kind of way. Okay, so you got what I'm trying to say. It's just, for example, when I sometimes talk to students, I see that they lack some, pressure. They're used to being pressurized by the teacher, being given them strict instructions like in the army. I was already taught in a different manner. I'm not this conservative type of teacher, I think, and not sure if our modern school is ready for not conservative teachers, but that is what I would love to introduce into my classroom. I will try to. It's difficult in the modern classroom, at least in the Russian schools, but as I told you, kids are understanding. It's just the system is not quite ready for this. If you talk to kids and say like, hey, we have instructions, we have the lesson plan, we have the task to do in the lesson, and and you have to have a lesson plan and a goal for each particular lesson. Like in this lesson, students have to learn how to do this. Like they have to learn how to ask the question, can you, and how to answer it. That's the goal for the lesson, for example. And all of the tasks that you introduce in the lesson, they have to be aiming to reach this goal, like this practical goal, like to teach them how to ask and answer this question. So what I was saying, I forgot already previously. So the school, I believe, like it's of course is going to change because kids are changing, teachers are also changing, and so sooner or later the school will be different, hopefully. It's just as I see it, I want to reduce this pressure and this stress that I have if I am not acting naturally in the class, but I want to be more natural, just, the way that you talk to somebody who understands, not to somebody who is lower than you in rank and who just needs to follow the instructions. It's not the way you have to teach kids in the school anymore. I believe it's just new kids, new school, and just it's all this communication should be like personal and on the same, let's say, level. But of course they have to feel that you are somebody in authority because you are more knowledgeable than them in what you are talking about, in what you are teaching them, something like this. I made myself some notes about, for example, if we teach them speaking, I see that speaking is more productive. Practicing speaking is more productive using pair work or group work when once in a while. It also can be in a group asking one another, like cross classroom asking questions, or asking teacher questions and teacher answers. It should be all other way around, like not teacher questioning students, but students questioning the teacher, and them practicing questions and you are answering their questions, something like this. So it just like completely shifts like the idea of how the classroom should be taught and how it is efficient. So it also gives kids some feeling of their own authority, of their own importance, and they start to get responsibility about what's going on in the lesson. So as for reading, in my opinion, individual work is more appropriate here, unless we practice reading as a skill, and then probably group work is applicable. Yeah, and if it is project work, then probably group work is best. Also, I'm into different language games, for example. And when you're practicing some grammar construction that kids already know, students already know, or that you have just introduced in the lesson, I like to practice it in games. So it's like question and answer, or it can be for grammar. Like, what games can you... There are a lot of games on the internet, actually. You can use some board games. Like, they can work in... They can play some games in pairs. And also quizzes. Quizzes are a good way of organizing group work. It again can be just you preparing a quiz for them and you asking them questions, or it can be them in groups preparing quiz questions on the grammar they have learned, for example, and asking another group these questions. Yeah, something like this, like to make it more lively. Okay, as for lessons, there are, guess what, different types of lessons. It's really basic. There are two types of lessons. I apologize. School teachers usually do not know about it. They are used to their standard methodology of presentation and listening to answers. Like presentation, asking questions, and getting answers. Giving marks, grading students, everybody's happy. No, you are not happy, students are not happy, it didn't work. This system doesn't work anymore. Kids are very knowledgeable about a lot in the world and about many things in the world, so they don't really enjoy this type of lessons anymore. They are not ready to listen to you the entire time. They have to respect you a lot to be sitting there and listening to you for 40 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever. Yeah. So to get away from this type of conservative lesson, there is another type of lesson which is organized like a challenge. You announce a challenge in the beginning of the lesson, and they have to work out the solutions to this challenge. It's more fun, it's more working with modern kids, I think. But first, I want to tell you a little about the first type of lessons. That's the type of lessons where you introduce new material. It's not that this type of lessons shouldn't exist anymore. Otherwise, how do you introduce new material? So not every lesson has to be the introducing new material lesson. They have to vary, So sometimes like introducing something new, sometimes challenging them to use their knowledge they already have to like produce, actually, to actualize the knowledge they already have. Something like this. So, first type of lessons, introducing new material. Once in a while, like I would say every second lesson maybe in the school is introducing new material. At least every second language lesson or something. In language teaching, it's called presentation, practice, production lesson. 3P, presentation, practice, production lesson. So it's, for example, kids are absolutely not familiar. They have never heard about present perfect, let's say. Never heard. It's just absolutely new for them. Then, of course, you need to use this presentation, practice, production type of lesson because it's new material, basically. So you give your presentation. You, as you always do, you present the present perfect tense to them. Like present perfect is used when we talk about something that's happened in your life. We don't give the particular time when it happened, or it's something that started in the past. and is still going on. Something like this. So you say the use, in which cases, when we speak about what events, we use present perfect. So the use of it, and then the form of it, like what form, have, has, and the verb in the third form. We have to use when we speak about these events, like something that you have just done. I've just had my coffee, for example. I've just drunk some water. You have introduced the form, positive, negative, and the question form of it. Presentation is complete. Then we go to practice. Practice, kids are not familiar with it. They have heard about it for the first time in their life. So there has to be what's called controlled practice. So of course in the students' books or on your handouts, there are some grammar tasks training this grammar construction. And you control how they do it, for example, in a group all together. Somebody does it, and the next person, and so on. And we correct, we correct their mistakes, and you see if there are some uncertainties, if something is not clear, etc. So practice can be like 1 or 2 exercises. A lot of conservative teachers who work still in the Soviet grammar translation method of teaching English, they stop on this. They think that I've introduced the material, we have done some practice, and usually they practice actually from, they think that 2, 3, 4 tasks it's not enough, and you have to take this thick grammar book and you have to do 15 more tasks, and then kids should know about this grammar construction, everything. No. If you train this grammar from the book or in the task, it doesn't mean kids have learned how to use this grammar in their speech. They haven't. They've no idea how to use it in real speech. So next step here is production. So it's basically how you use what you have just practiced in your own speech, how you produce the knowledge that you've gotten into speech, into how you would use it in your real life. And for this we use only I use only oral tasks for this, because doing exercises is practice, it's not production. And in this case I like Q&A in pairs. For example, they can interview one another if that's present perfect. Have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? Have you ever jumped with a parachute? Have you ever milked a cow? Have you ever, I don't know, bought flowers for your mom? Yeah. And they ask and answer these questions. There can be some plan, some handout, for example, some ideas on the board, like bought flowers, milked a cow, listed any activities, so that they use some of the ideas to interview one another, and that's how they actually actualize this grammar in their speaking. That's how they have pronounced it, they have gotten used to pronouncing it, they have asked somebody and actually got the answer from them, they understood what the answer was, and they are able to probably even present this answer, speak about their partner to the entire group. Like Alex has never milked a cow, but he has bought flowers for his mom. Something like this, as I see it. And also, if that's group work, for example, again, production of this new grammar, it can be, I like, for example, true, false. It can be done in a group. I say, hey guys, you say now some phrases in the present perfect about you, true or false. I like it because this task, because it takes no extra preparation, no extra materials, no extra equipment, nothing. It's just pure production of learned grammar, pure production, nothing, no preparation. So, and they say, for example, to the class, I have bought a new watch recently, and the class have to guess if that's true or false. Yeah, I think it's true. Yeah, no, it's false. So, and it involves more group work, more interaction, as our modern classroom has to be more interactive. So it implies more interaction between students, and teacher becomes like the part of this class actually, and interacts with the students kind of. Okay, this is the type of the lesson that we call presentation practice production, when we introduce new material. In case we understand kids have this much knowledge, this knowledge is falling out of out of them. They are not able to store any more new material. Basically, it's every second lesson. Yeah, I would prefer to vary these two types of lessons. Then I might want to just practice introduce nothing new, but practice something that they already have, that they already know. And I call it training a skill type of lesson. So we are not introducing anything, we are just training some skill. Okay, it can be actually given as a challenge. Like today, guys, we are talking about, I don't know, dangerous sports. And as a result, we have to find out which sport is the most extreme or something. But I don't know how introducing the challenge in this way is suitable, helpful, or easy for the teacher. So the easiest way is just kids, once they know how to say something, they already like to speak. So they probably like to speak more than they like to study. So speaking here comes to our rescue. If we decide that in the lesson, the skill that we want to train is fluent speaking. I have a little note for myself. Oh no. Okay, here. So the skill that we are training in this lesson is fluent speaking. For example, the topic, let's say, would be, let's say food, just for example. How we train it. Just for instance, it doesn't have to be the entire lesson. So, for example, it's again Q&A. Students interview one another about on the food they like, don't like, have never eaten, would want to eat, etc. And then probably, so it's like pair work, and then they introduce, then they share the results with the classroom. It's more like interaction in the group. Okay, it's fluent speaking. It can take about half of the lesson, for example. It depends on how many questions. Of course, the teacher prepares the questions. Students cannot be talking about nothing. So, like the teacher prepares some list of questions, a list of ideas like food you like, don't like, have eaten, have never eaten, can cook, or take with you to school. The list of questions that they have to discuss together on the board, on the printouts, and they just interview one another, going along the list. Something like this. It's if we practice, for example, speaking in the class as a skill. If in this skill training lesson we want to practice writing, what do you do? How can we, writing is production, so writing is, there can be a lesson introducing some type of writing, like introducing how to write an email, an informal email, or it can be just, like writing as a challenge, which is more fun actually. For example, I don't know, the topic, you think that we need to practice writing. What challenge do I give them to write about? Like if the topic is sport in the book, for example, okay, sport. What can we write about so that we just practice? Okay, let's imagine we have a summer camp, and children in pairs, for example, need to make a list of activities for every day, to do a timetable for the summer camp. Okay, they will gladly do it. It sounds like a little bit of extra work for the teacher. It sounds like difficult, but in fact, if you take it easy, Like if your kids are already trained to work in pairs, if they already know how to work in pairs, if you give them the task, guys, today we speak about sport, and I have a creative task for you. So imagine we have a sports summer camp, and you need to make like timetable for each day of the week for the kids who are in the summer camp. And after that, we will compare your lists and we'll choose the best timetable in the group, something like this. And you don't even have to choose that best, timetable, but the idea is to get them writing, so to get them like discuss and produce to discuss and produce all of these words they already know about sports, and like use some creative ideas. What it depends on the level. You can change this task, tailor this task depending on the level, like what they can write about, but it's not the typical writing, like writing an email or learning to write an email. It's just like practicing plain writing, just for fun and just for practice, something like this. That's what I would do in a language school, and that's what I believe can work in a regular school as well, in the language classroom. Or okay, we have discussed practicing speaking, fluent speaking, writing. For example, if we in this training lesson, want to train reading for detail, we have a text. Topic of the text is school. How to do it in a fun way, like practicing reading for detail. I would give, if you have prepared for the lesson, you already know what the text is about and what the problem. Maybe it's advantages and disadvantages of school learning or something like this. And you already know the text is about this. So you kind of introduce the task before them reading this text. That, guys, you read the text now. And in the text, there are given some advantages and disadvantages of school education. So in 5 minutes after you've read the text, we are going to discuss what ideas about advantages and disadvantages are listed in the text. Yeah, something like this. So they read with some idea in mind that they are going to answer this question after they have read the text, not just reading for reading. Reading with some challenge in mind, something like this. Or with reading can also work some language learning task, as I can see it. For example, I don't know, read the text and put down all the past simple forms or past continuous forms from the text. It's not, I don't like this type of tasks, but it could work actually for like grammar practice. Or for example, read the text and make a list of all new words from the text, that all unfamiliar words, all the words that you don't know, connected with the topic of education, connected with education. So they read the text and they write, like put down the words that they do not know from the text, something like this. So that's kind of reading, working with the text, plus working with the language in the text. And the idea is to make and you ask them to work out the meaning of these new words from the context. And after they finished reading, we can discuss it in the class, like what new words did we have in the text, and what do you think these words mean? And actually, this is a new vocabulary from the text is introduced, and that's their task further on to repeat this vocabulary. Next lesson, probably we start with revision of some words, in which way we can revise the words, not just like, what is this? And they translate. No, it's like old school. We don't do this. For example, they have the list of these words, and you can play a guessing game. So, for example, choose one of the words from the list in secret, tell the group about this word, and we have to guess what word it is. It makes everybody involved, plus the person speaking is practicing speaking, and the people listening and guessing are practicing listening. It's like twice better. So yeah, just using and involving all of the skills like into one task. And the last thing that we can actualize in the lesson, which is not the introducing of new material lesson, but just practicing lesson, is, for example, practicing some grammar that they already know. Not introducing new grammar, but practicing something that they already know from some time ago, like from last lesson, from last week, or from last school year. Okay. How do we do this, for example? If you have to, like, just in the lesson, we want to work with some grammar they already know. So it has to be not introduction of this grammar again. They already know it. We don't have to introduce anything. We have to acquire, like we have to take it out from them. Yeah. So I would question first. I would question them if they remember this particular grammar, or if they don't, like the grammar they know. Usually somebody remembers, or all of them remember, so it's like a win. They remember the whole grammar. Yoo-hoo. Okay. And we put like a quick reminder on the board what this construction is. And then again, for me, I personally really like this interview thing, because okay, this grammar, let's say from last year you remember past simple, right? You put it quickly on the board. You may try to refresh some irregular verbs, for example, again, like ping pong kind of thing. You ask them, for example, the first form, like teach, and they tell you taught. Yeah, past simple, like think, thought, stuff like that. Or what I think is very cool is when you ask them the past simple form of irregular verbs, thought, and they have to work it out in their mind, like go the other way around, think about the past simple form, thought, and give you as an answer the infinitive form, think. So the brain actually goes not the like direct way from the here to there, but the other way around, and it's like more practice to the like thinking actually. That's what I found out, and it actually works brilliantly, because it's more difficult than if you ask, for example, kids to count not from 1 to 10 but from 10 to 1. It appears to be a bigger challenge for them, because it's easy to learn this like 1 to 3 as a song, and you don't really, once you have to do it backwards, you have to actually know it, and you have to think about how to do it. Yeah, and if you don't know it, you cannot do it. So it's a better way to practice, like giving them challenges, not giving them easy ways to go, like challenging them. They are ready for that, they are waiting for that. Yeah, so like you give them the second form, for example, I don't know, like got, and they tell you get. Okay. Past simple. Yeah, we've practiced some irregular verbs, and after that I actually like also, as I told you, give some questions, and they in pairs ask one. And so let us recap. So we basically talked today about 2 types of lessons: introducing new material lesson and practicing some older skills already, like already acquired skills. In speaking, it can be listening, it can be writing, can be practicing some old grammar that students already know, and so on. Also, forgot already what we talked about. Yeah, also the idea, the main idea in the language classroom and in the modern classroom, I think, is to decrease teacher talking time and increase student talking time. And student, it's actual for language classroom, and student working time, probably it's actual for other school subjects. I think so, like individual work or something like this. So the idea is to, in the language classroom, to increase the student talking time, and for that I find a solution here. in introduction of pair work. Pair work works really nicely, and it reduces a lot of the teacher's workload. Actually, first you introduce pair work, and after that they are able to train everything by themselves in pairs. You just give them tasks, and they practice everything in pairs. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yes, it's best type of work. Okay. And also for that, I wanted to say that to organize this all, the teacher has to be always prepared for lessons. Preparation for a lesson is a must, so that your lesson goes, so that you can reach this understanding with the students, because you have the authority to give them instructions. Not instructions like you know, like keep quiet and listen to me. No, not like this. Like we are doing some particular task, we have a goal for the lesson, and we are to reach this goal. For that, we have to have a lesson plan, we have to have an objective for every lesson, a practical goal that we have to reach with our students in the lesson, and we have to have always like a plan and some idea what tasks, like what communicative tasks to use in order to reach this objective in the lesson. Something like this, yeah. Okay, it's a Sunday, and I'm a little bit like I wanted to relax today actually, and I'm not really in a working mode, but as you see, yeah, what am I doing? Just I don't know, working. And I have some 160 tests because I do not know the students, the kids, and they had to have a small test here, and on the other side they like after they've done the test they had to write a little text about themselves, so that I got familiar with them, and I got some understanding of what their actual level of production is. Yeah, and I think that so what we are going to start with next school week is I will make this like as a guessing game, the info from the texts, and I will just how I'm gonna start. I will just prepare some questions like, who do you think has 2 cats and a dog? Who do you think plays professional football? And so on. Who do you think in the class visits Turkey every summer? Something like this. And they'll have to think about their group mates and guess who does it or who has it, and stuff like that. But it's not really, you see, it's not really communicative, it's more interaction teacher-students. But after that I haven't planned any lessons for tomorrow yet, but that's like the introduction and like making them more involved into the group work, like interaction and so on. And after that I definitely have to plan some communicative task for them to like talk together. Not planned yet, haven't planned yet. Yeah, something like this. And as I see it, like this actualization, this actually communicative tasks, like what you call it, it's called warm-up, actually, warm-up. And it's when you get your students talking in the beginning of the class. But for me, this warm-up can take up to half of the lesson, something like this, just because this production works really nicely. So I think that we are gonna, next school week, we are gonna do in all lessons about half of the lesson of just plain speaking practice, something like this, just to actualize what they have but have never practiced previously, something like this, just to get them more into speaking and listening, stuff like this. Like each lesson, half of the lesson will be some sort of warm-up or something. Yeah, interaction with other students, hopefully. Okay, see you next time.